All right, everyone. Good morning. Hello, and welcome to Of Bricks and Dragons. So, I'm still kind of going through and trying to learn, and it's been taking a little bit longer because I've been doing other things for work and that. So, trying to go through the Star Trek and then as well as doing the Fallout stuff. The nice thing is, if I learn one, I'm pretty much learning the other. Now, I'm kind of watching a video. Gentleman's doing a very good video on doing starship combat and everything else. Now, if you've watched the channel at all, I'm sure that you have seen that I also do uh, Star Wars and that, and some of the things that I have kind of done throughout the years. Because uh, it's one thing if you're running character combat and everybody's in their own starfighter, everybody takes care of their own ships. But if you have bigger ships and you have more stations in that ship, or characters in different stations in those ships and that, um, it's always nice when you can give people things to do. Okay, so let's just say you look at Star Wars. You have Luke Skywalker. He's in the starfighter. He's taking care of whatever, and then you have R2D2 in the back trying to do the engineering mechanical role, right? See what he can fix or whatever else. So we have that kind of going on. Um, then if you bump up and you have someone in a YT-1300, say Han and Chewie and the Millennium Falcon, well, there are plenty of times where it's not just them in the Falcon, but you also have other people that are in some of the um, gunnery stations, stuff like that. Um, so you get those things. Um, let's see, here we are. Okay. So I had kind of come down with a kind of system when I was doing Star Wars. Now this would work very and transfers very nicely into Star Trek, because really I was looking at Star Trek for this very reason. And hopefully, if I have this correctly, you guys are looking at um, the same screen I'm looking at. All right. Well, I just changed to a different bridge. So we got bridge modules here, and I'm just doing a general search. So if you're doing Star Trek or any other generic space, whatever, think about how many stations you have in your starship. Okay. When we look at Star Trek, the original series, and I don't see that one here up on the top list here that I could kind of click on, but let's see if you can see my mouse. That works great because I don't normally make videos in this format, but you have your navigation. So here's your pilot off on the left hand side. On the right hand side, you have your astro navigation, essentially a secondary pilot. And they work in unison. So I think when you really look at it, they can kind of both control things. Sometimes they lean over and hit something, whatever. Um, I've been watching the remastered version of Star Trek, the original series. And one of the things I've kind of noticed in watching the remastered version in comparison to watching the old original years and years ago, maybe it's something I forgot, which, hey, my mind is not perfect. Um, Whenever they would get into combat, you'd have Sulu or whoever was in the pilot's chair. They would also be your um, your gunner, really. I mean, you would have crew members down below on some other decks. They would be making sure that the phaser cannons, torpedo launchers, and all that were primed, ready to go, all that stuff. But the person that was actually doing your aiming and actually pressing the button to fire was at that console. And at that point, then you have your astronavigator will kind of take over some of the piloting duties. So you have kind of someone there to help. Now, I'm admitting this very, very quickly, and I want you to remember this. I have not read through all the rules for Starship Combat, but one thing I want you to keep in mind is how many actual stations do you have on a starship. So if we're all looking at the same screen here, I have one person that's doing your piloting and astronavigation. Behind that person, we have two chairs, which I would guess is going to be your captain and probably your second in command. Behind there, we have a gentleman standing looking at some panels or whatever, which could be whatever. And then we have three stations all off to the right, and it looks like two stations off to the left. Something like that. So on a ship this big, and seeing that this is like the next generation era type setup, you can always change out these stations for whatever. So you could have an engineering section, communications. Maybe one of them becomes a tactical, and they're sitting, whatever. Okay. Now the way I did this in Star Wars, and I think this would transfer to any other system, and I said this before, and I'm holding to my guns on this. Um, I have not fully read. I have not fully gone through Space Combat. I do want to play it, and I'm going to fumble through it, and we're gonna record it, and we'll see how bad I do. So let's just keep that in mind, and then you can laugh at me for all the mistakes I make, and that's perfectly fine. I don't take myself seriously. I do things because I enjoy doing this stuff from my from making my Legos, which I'm just kind of out of room. Um, and I've got stuff sitting here on my pool table. I just can't find room to put it. Um, to do in role playing games because I love the creativity. Um, but in having characters, going back to a YT 1300, you're in combat. If I've got a pilot, a co-pilot, maybe because there's like four chairs there, um, and I think I could get four people doing things. But normally, I have a pilot, co-pilot. I might have maybe one or two gunners, so they're going to be in the gun wells. And then if I have someone that's taking care of like the cargo, as we're maneuvering around, and you kind of see this in like Star Trek: The Lower Decks because I've been watching that, and they put the captain and some of the senior crew. The ship's taking damage. Things are flopping around. Cargo containers are falling down. They have to restack this stuff during combat. That's kind of their job. So that's the same idea I was thinking back when, before I had even seen the lower decks doing that. Um, but we would do like cargo nets, thinking from because we watched Firefly. So you use cargo nets to hold everything in place. It's not just sitting there, but occasionally you'd have to double check because maybe one of the clips came loose, and you don't want to lose the cargo all over the place. Whatever it is, one of the joke kind of scenarios that they threw out for Star Wars was, you get the haul, you get a mission to haul food, but nobody told you what the food was, so now it's live food. And there again, if you watch Firefly, um, they were hauling cattle, so they had cows on the ship. So now you got to clean up all the cow poo and whatever, So it's just the hilariousness. Now you have to have a deckhand down there trying to clean up the cow poo if the ship's having to make some um, strange maneuvers. Are the cows safe? You'd have to kind of do that stuff. So it keeps everyone active. And I think that's from the things I'm listening to. I think that's really what they're trying to do on Modiphius's Star Trek during the Starfleet battles. Um, Now, this is how I would do this. Now, I'm sure when I read through it, it's going to work very similar. Um, so as we have all these different consoles, okay, in the Star Trek field. Now, maybe you have characters that are in a lower deck, and maybe they're just worrying about that cargo area, but they can help each other out, right? So as you have people helping each other out, and whatever the difficulty is, maybe they can add one extra die in the helping of. Okay, so in this scenario, now we're looking at the bridge. Let me change up to a different bridge here. This one looks interesting. All right, so we have a couple different stations here. Wish I could kind of blow this up a little bit more. Here we go. No, I don't know if that helps or not. All right. So we have a pilot station. We have a astronavigator. We have, I'm going to say, like a science, a tactical, and a captain's chair. So if this is all the crew we have all of 5 people. Okay. So you're in combat. Your pilot is doing your maneuvers. So if they say, hey, combat maneuver delta, whatever. Okay, so the pilot's going to do whatever swoops or sweeps or whatever else they're going to do. And you have your astronavigator that can help. Okay, or maybe your astronavigator in this sense is trying to help out with the shields. Okay, while your security personnel is worrying about trying to lock on and fire onto whatever ship you have. Now, if you have a science or an engineer, that person might be trying to help your um, tactical officer with an extra sensor bing or whatever to try and help paint that picture. So your science might be helping your tactical officer with a +1 in targeting. Um, while your pilot is piloting, and if they have to reroute power to shields from some other area, all that, that's what your astro navigator is doing. Okay, because he's not piloting at the moment, maybe he doesn't need the help, but he's trying to make sure that tactically the ship is fine because your tactical person is occupied. Now you have a captain sitting there. Okay, your captain, and you could use this as an NPC. You could use this as your game master character, whatever. Okay, captains, I think, in a lot of regards, work really well as game master characters because in Star Trek, you don't really see them beaming down as much. In the older series, in the original series, they did. In the Next Generation, and that not quite as much. I think Voyager, I didn't really get into Voyager all that much. I just had a harder time getting into Voyager. Not saying it was bad or whatever. It's just personally something I just couldn't really get into. I think I do remember Janeway beaming down quite a bit, but whatever. Okay. Um, but you have an extra person that can help out in any station. They are the one in command, so they get to decide who they're going to help in whatever situation. So there's an extra die you can help add. Now, as I'm trying to learn the momentum and the threat, um, which would then equate down to like using action points and stuff like that in Fallout. If we get into like a air combat on some big ship in Fallout, it would all run the same way. Okay, so this is the idea. You as a player, if you need help trying to do certain maneuvers or whatever, say, hey, this is going to be a little tricky. Maybe I'm not as good. Whether it's an NPC, whether it's another player that is doing something similar or whatever, say, hey, I don't have a big need in this particular moment, so I can lend a helping hand to that character. Just like if you beam down and you're like, hey, we're trying to open the door, right? I will help this character open the door so I can add one extra die to that die roll to try and get that success. In whatever system, however that system runs, whatever it needs for that success. That's how I would kind of run it. Now, admittingly, I'm going to try and get later today, and this will probably go up, and I'm hoping to have this go up for tomorrow. I'm going to try and run a Star Trek scenario that's already done. It's from the box set, and hopefully we can get through it. And then I'm going to fumble. So we're going to go through the whole thing, however long this goes, and it's going to be a lot of fumbling, and everyone can laugh at me and all that stuff, which is perfectly fine. Um, I'm trying to learn this. I want this so that way anyone else watching this, they get that idea. Um, I guess I've been doing training for so long. That's just kind of how I like to do it, because I've done a lot of forklift training, and right now I'm in training for a whole different position and all that stuff. So as I'm trying to do that, and I'm kind of my brain is just kind of fried because I'm trying to take care of all that. And oddly enough, I'm trying to learn a whole new gaming system at the same time. So like I said in a prior video, things are not going to come off. I'm not doing as many videos. I'm trying to still want to do my comics because I still think that's a good thing for Monday and Tuesday. But then the weekend, I'm definitely going to try and make sure I get our role playing game out. During the other 3 days here, I may or may not get stuff up until I get everything kind of worked out here. Um, but this is just a thought. So, whatever system you're running, whatever game you're running, think about that. Okay, so if I've got someone in a cargo hold trying to make sure things are done, as we're maneuvering around, give them a difficulty. That way, you don't have players just sitting around a pool table or whatever table you have. For me, it's my pool table. My pool table is my everything table here. Um, but as you sit around the table, and you don't have one person that's like, well, this is boring because I have nothing to do. Now you give them a job. And actually, I have been given compliments of that because it really felt like they were part of a ongoing team. Now everyone's got a job, from the lowest person that's just guarding cargo to the person that's actually shooting the phaser, blaster cannons, whatever, at some other enemy. And then someone going through the shields to make sure the shields are good. Um, you know, Even in Star Wars, the shields take damage in that. Okay, well, um, reroute the shields because you hear it in the original, which is now episode 4. Hey, double double up the shields in the back. So essentially, what they were being told is, don't worry about the shields maybe on the front and the sides. Put all your extra shield power towards the back. So it's doing that same thing. Maybe we can cut off some. I'm hearing that there's like a power thing. So quite often in Star Trek, you hear them, all right, cut power to decks, whatever, for life support because we don't have anyone in there. So we can boost power to the shields, the engines, the whatever. So that's just kind of where I had gotten that idea from, when I had come up with this idea. And as I'm listening to all this other stuff, now we got a medical bay here, and here again in a medical bay, it's just the same thing, right? Because when you look at Star Trek and they have all these little tables and all your stuff all over the place, you don't have everything all nailed down. So sometimes you have trays that fall over, and then people have to clean it up, or maybe you have to secure the stuff. Um, so we just get stuff like that. Transporter room here. Um, let's see what else we have. We have another bridge here, and here's a smaller bridge. So I'm trying to figure out, because when I get going, I want to do a saber class because it's a smaller crew. I like to stay with smaller crews, because I think I don't want to run a lot of extra characters, the primary and secondary characters, because we can always do narrative version of what's going on the ship while you're on the ground. Um, but I've been doing that for quite a while. I don't need to have both going on at the same time. This might be the reason why your characters aren't getting that support, because there's whatever going on up at the ship. And for whatever the characters are, even if it doesn't seem like it makes sense, to say, well, I have a medical officer down on a tactical thing. Actually, it does make a lot of sense. I've been in the Army. I was in the infantry. We do have medics. I was a combat lifesaver, so I wasn't even up to the level of medic, but I was just someone there. Why do you have a science officer? Well, you can almost justify anything, um, I don't know how, just going off on a wild, if someone specialized in the ecology of squirrels, I don't know why they would be there, but maybe it's, they just needed someone for a science, because I'm going to guess that's probably going to be in the science division, um, to help out for whatever. So, um, or, sometimes, I know it was brought up in the original series. Um, there was there was like a pool, so your name just came up in a pool. Maybe it's not something you specialize in, but your name came up and it's your turn to go down. Uh, Kind of a thought I had is, um, maybe I might put a small group on like a Danube class runabout, and see that is essentially they're assigned to that runabout, and they are a shuttle crew, whatever, for doing missions, and you go from there. However, you want to run your game. I can't tell you how to run it, because I don't know what your group is like and how you guys really excel at this. But these are thoughts. So, all right. With that in mind, um, hopefully you have a good day. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for visiting. Thanks for coming around my pool table and listen to me ramble on what I ramble on about. And have a good day. We'll see you in the next one.